Introduction: The Power of Thought. In the introduction of Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill sets the foundation for the entire book with one core idea: thoughts are powerful. He doesn't mean this in a vague or mystical way. He argues that every great achievement, every fortune ever created, began first as a thought in someone's mind. That initial idea, when fueled by desire, belief, and action, has the potential to shape reality. Hill introduces the story of Edwin C. Barnes, a man who dreamed of working with the great inventor Thomas Edison. Barnes had no money, connections, or credentials. But what he did have was a definite purpose and an unshakable belief in himself. He didn't just wish, he decided that he would make it happen. And eventually, through persistence and faith, he did. This example illustrates Hill's central argument. Definiteness of purpose, backed by a burning desire and belief, can turn thought into riches. He emphasizes that success is not reserved for the lucky or, well, connected. It's available to anyone who learns how to harness the power of their thoughts. This mental control is not automatic. It must be developed through intention, focus, and discipline. Thoughts, when repeated and emotionally charged, influence our actions and ultimately determine our destiny. The introduction is more than a preface. It's a call to take personal responsibility for one's future. Hill wants readers to realize that they are the architects of their own lives. By controlling what they think about, most especially when it comes to wealth and success, they can begin the journey toward achieving it. Chapter 1. Desire, the starting point of all achievement. Napoleon Hill kicks off the book by declaring a bold truth. All achievement begins with a burning desire. Not a vague wish, not a hopeful dream, but a deep, obsessive need to achieve something specific. In this chapter, he draws a clear line between idle wishing and purposeful desire, emphasizing that desire is the foundation of success. Hill shares the story of Edwin C. Barnes to illustrate this idea. Barnes wasn't rich, powerful, or connected, but he had a strong desire to work with Thomas Edison. Not for him, with him. That distinction mattered. Barnes didn't have the money to travel properly, so he hopped on a freight train and showed up at Edison's lab. At first, he didn't get his dream job, but he did get a chance to work in the building. He held on to his vision with unwavering belief. Years later, when the opportunity came to sell one of Edison's inventions, Barnes was ready and seized it. Eventually, he became Edison's business partner, just as he had imagined. This story sets the tone for the entire book. Hill's message is that desire, when fueled with faith and backed by action, becomes unstoppable. To help readers turn desire into results, Hill introduces a 6-step formula that acts like a blueprint for goal achievement. 1. Decide exactly how much money or success you want. Vagueness doesn't cut it, be specific. 2. Determine what you're willing to give in return. Success isn't free. You must offer effort, time, skill, or sacrifice. 3. Set a clear date by which you will achieve your goal. A deadline creates urgency. 4. Create a definite plan and begin immediately, whether you're ready or not. Waiting for the perfect time leads to procrastination. 5. Write out a clear statement with all the above details. 6. Read this statement aloud twice a day, once in the morning, once before bed, while visualizing and believing in your success. Hill insists that repeating this process daily will reprogram your subconscious mind and attract the right thoughts, people, and opportunities to move you toward your goal. He also points out that failure is often temporary. Many people give up just before success arrives. Desire, he says, gives you the stamina to push through disappointment, delay, and rejection. He warns that the road to success is not easy, but a burning desire turns obstacles into stepping stones. Hill finishes the chapter by reinforcing that you must want your goal with a passion so intense it becomes a dominating obsession. Only then will you summon the faith, persistence, and action needed to transform your life. Chapter 2. Faith, Visualization, and Belief in Attainment. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill dives deep into the idea of faith, but not in the religious sense. Instead, Hill describes faith as a state of mind that you can develop through practice. It's a mental attitude that gives power to your thoughts and transforms them into reality. Simply put, faith is the bridge between your desires and their achievement. Hill makes a bold claim. Faith is the only known antidote for failure. If you believe in your goals with unwavering confidence, you can overcome almost any obstacle. But this belief doesn't come out of nowhere, you create it. Through repetition, emotion, and self-suggestion, faith can be nurtured, just like a muscle. One of the most practical tools Hill introduces here is autosuggestion, the act of feeding your subconscious mind with affirmations or positive declarations. When you repeat something with emotion, especially a clear goal or desire, your subconscious begins to accept it as truth. Over time, this helps replace doubt and fear with belief and conviction. A key point Hill emphasizes is that the subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. Whether you're repeating empowering thoughts or negative ones, the subconscious will accept them either way. So, if you keep telling yourself, "I can't do this," your subconscious believes it and acts accordingly. But if you train yourself to say, "I am capable, I will achieve this goal," it begins to shape your mindset and your actions to match. Hill also discusses the connection between faith and emotions. Thoughts mixed with strong emotions are more likely to influence the subconscious mind. That's why he urges readers to always attach emotions like love, hope, and enthusiasm to their affirmations and mental pictures of success. Cold, mechanical repetition isn't enough. You need to feel the truth of what you're saying. In this context, visualization becomes a powerful tool. When you visualize your goal as already achieved and combine it with belief and emotion, you start aligning your behavior with that outcome. You attract opportunities, build resilience, and naturally take steps that lead you closer to your goal. Faith also plays a defensive role. It neutralizes fear and doubt, which are two of the biggest killers of success. Where fear clouds your thinking and holds you back, faith gives you clarity and courage. Hill urges us to make faith a habit, and that only happens through consistent daily practice. Ultimately, Hill leaves us with a powerful truth. All success begins in the mind. Faith turns invisible desires into visible results. It's not just about hoping something happens. It's about believing it will, acting on that belief, and refusing to let go until it becomes real. Chapter 3. Autosuggestion, the medium for influencing the subconscious mind. Autosuggestion, in simple terms, is the bridge between your conscious thoughts and your subconscious mind. It's the process of feeding specific ideas or beliefs to your inner self deliberately and repeatedly. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill emphasizes that the subconscious mind accepts any information given to it, whether true or false, positive or negative, and turns it into reality over time. That's why it's so important to intentionally guide what you feed it. At the heart of this chapter is one big idea. You can influence your subconscious mind through repeated affirmations that align with your goals. The power of this method comes from emotion, the feelings behind the words you say. It's not enough to just recite a phrase like, "I will be successful," robotically. You have to feel it. The subconscious reacts to emotionally charged thoughts. When you combine emotion with repetition, you start to reprogram your mind to believe those ideas as fact. Hill ties autosuggestion directly to the 6 steps from Chapter 2 about turning desire into riches. He explains that reading your written statement aloud twice a day, once in the morning and once before bed, while seeing, feeling, and believing in your goal is essential. This isn't wishful thinking or daydreaming. It's purposeful mental conditioning. Another key point, autosuggestion is how you develop faith. And in Hill's philosophy, faith is a form of belief so strong that it shapes your thoughts, actions, and destiny. By affirming your desires with feeling, you train yourself to believe in your vision even before it physically exists. That belief, over time, fuels motivation and persistence, 2 ingredients essential to achieving success. Hill also warns that this process cuts both ways. If you constantly think about failure, doubt, or fear, your subconscious will absorb those too and act accordingly. That's why it's crucial to guard your mind and deliberately replace negative thoughts with positive ones. To make autosuggestion work, Hill suggests a simple daily practice. 1. Write your goals clearly. 2. Visualize them as already achieved. 3. Repeat your goals aloud twice daily with emotion. 4. See yourself already in possession of what you desire. The more often you do this, the more your subconscious will align your behavior, decisions, and even perception with those goals. Eventually, as Hill puts it, the mind becomes magnetized with the dominating thoughts you choose to plant there. In summary, this chapter is about taking control of your inner dialogue. Instead of letting fear and doubt run the show, you use the power of suggestion, your own words and emotions, to impress your goals upon your subconscious. Over time, those mental seeds grow into the beliefs and actions that bring your vision to life. Chapter 4. Specialized knowledge, personal experiences or observations. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill makes a clear distinction between general knowledge and specialized knowledge, and he emphasizes that specialized knowledge is what truly leads to wealth and success. You can have a ton of general knowledge, like facts from school or trivia, but unless it's organized and directed toward a definite goal, it's essentially useless when it comes to achieving success. Hill begins by debunking the myth that knowledge alone is power. In his words, knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when and if it is organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end. That's a game-changing perspective. A person might be highly educated in an academic sense, but still struggle financially if they don't know how to apply what they know in a purposeful way. He goes on to explain that you don't need to know everything yourself, and that's a huge relief. What matters more is your ability to recognize what specialized knowledge is needed and then to find it. You can hire experts, collaborate with others, or even build a mastermind group, as he describes in later chapters, to fill in your own knowledge gaps. In other words, success is more about being resourceful than being all-knowing. Hill gives the example of Henry Ford, who famously had very little formal education but still built one of the most powerful industrial empires in history. Ford wasn't a man of vast general knowledge, but he surrounded himself with people who had the knowledge he needed, and that made all the difference. When people mocked Ford for not knowing facts, he countered by saying he had a row of buttons on his desk he could press to summon experts at any time. That's the kind of thinking Hill wants us to adopt. Another powerful idea from this chapter is that specialized knowledge is not static. You have to continuously seek out new knowledge, learn new skills, and adapt to changing time. Hill even recommends setting aside a regular time for study, self-education, and reflection. This makes success a lifelong pursuit, not a one-time achievement. Hill also nudges readers to think about how they can turn their interests or passions into specialized knowledge that can be monetized. If you know something deeply that others find valuable, whether it's cars, coding, skincare, or online marketing, you can build a career or business around it. But it takes clarity of purpose and intentional planning. In summary, Chapter 4 is a call to action. It tells us that success doesn't come from just knowing things. It comes from knowing the right things and applying them with focus. And if you don't know them yet, that's okay. You can learn. You can find people who do. What matters is your ability to use knowledge strategically. Chapter 5. Imagination, the workshop of the mind. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill emphasizes the critical role of imagination in the process of achieving success. He calls it the workshop of the mind, where all plans and ideas are shaped before they become reality. Imagination, according to Hill, is where desire begins to take form, where dreams evolve into tangible action steps. Hill breaks imagination into two types. 1. Synthetic imagination. This is the ability to arrange old ideas, concepts, or plans into new combinations. It doesn't create anything entirely new, but rather reshuffles what already exists. Most businesses, inventions, or creative works are born through synthetic imagination. Entrepreneurs often rely heavily on this type when forming business plans or solving problems. 2. Creative imagination. This is the rarer, more mysterious form. It's the source of new ideas, flashes of inspiration, and solutions that seem to come out of nowhere. Hill believes that creative imagination is the channel through which infinite intelligence, a kind of universal wisdom, communicates with us. It's this power that delivers breakthroughs and genius-level insight. Hill stresses that imagination is like a muscle. It gets stronger with use. The more you challenge your mind to come up with ideas, solutions, and alternatives, the more capable it becomes. He encourages readers to actively use their imagination when building their plans for wealth and success. One of the big takeaways from this chapter is that money and success don't come by chance. They come through deliberate, imaginative planning. You must think creatively about how to transform your desire into a definite plan. The people who rise to great success are often not the most educated or the most experienced. They're the most imaginative and bold in applying their ideas. Hill also reminds us that many great fortunes started with just a simple idea. The idea itself didn't need to be original or complex, it just needed to be backed by desire, faith, and action. That idea is born in the imagination and brought to life through persistence and planning. A practical insight from this chapter is that you should set aside time to think creatively, to let your imagination run without limitation. Don't dismiss ideas as impossible or unrealistic right away. Give yourself permission to explore possibilities, even wild ones, because great achievements often come from what others once thought impossible. Finally, Hill ties imagination back to desire. Your burning desire is the fuel, but imagination is the tool that shapes it into something real. Without imagination, desire remains a vague hope. With imagination, it becomes a vision, a plan, and eventually, a result. Chapter 6. Organized Planning. The Crystallization of Desire into Action. This chapter is where Napoleon Hill starts turning dreams into something more tangible. Up until now, you've been building a burning desire and feeding it with faith and autosuggestion. But desire alone isn't enough. You need a real, actionable plan. Chapter 6 is all about that next step, transforming desire into concrete results through organized planning. Hill begins by making it clear that no one ever succeeds without a plan, even if that plan needs to be revised 100 times. Flexibility is crucial. Failure doesn't mean your goal is wrong. It usually just means your plan needs improvement. He lays out a straightforward method. Ally yourself with a group of people who will help you execute your plan. He calls this a mastermind group. This team should consist of people with the skills, knowledge, or resources you lack. You're not meant to go it alone. In fact, some of the most successful people became great simply by knowing how to surround themselves with the right talent. Hill emphasizes that you must offer value in return to those in your team. People won't help you just because you have a dream. You need to give them a reason to join your mission. Then comes the reality check. If your first plan fails, don't quit. Most people do. That's why they stay average. Hill says failure is a test, not a dead end. Winners regroup, revise, and restart. Losers make excuses. He warns against procrastination and encourages you to take immediate action once your plan is ready, even if it's not perfect. Action breeds momentum. Another important part of this chapter is Hill's advice on how to secure a leadership role or land a desirable job. He outlines qualities of strong leadership, like courage, decisiveness, and integrity, and the traits of weak leaders. He even includes practical tips like how to write a persuasive job proposal tailored to what the company needs, not just what you want. He's not shy about reality either. Hill openly talks about why people fail: lack of persistence, bad habits, fear, poor decision-making, and lack of definite plans are some of the biggest reasons. But the good news is that every single one of these can be overcome. By the end of the chapter, the message is clear. Your desire becomes powerful only when backed by solid, adaptable plans and continuous action. You don't need a perfect roadmap to start, just one that gets you moving. Success favors those who take action and adjust along the way. Chapter 7. Decision: The Mastery of Procrastination. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill dives into one of the biggest killers of success, procrastination, and the cure: decision. Firm, quick, and unwavering decision-making. Hill observed that successful people are those who make decisions quickly and change them slowly, if at all. On the other hand, unsuccessful individuals tend to hesitate, overthink, and change their minds often, swaying with every opinion or outside influence. According to Hill, indecision is a form of fear, and the longer it lingers, the more control it has over you. He argues that decision-making is not just about logic, it's about confidence and courage. You don't need to have all the facts to make a decision, but you do need to believe in yourself and your goals. Waiting for the perfect time or more information often just leads to inaction. And inaction, Hill says, is the graveyard of potential. Hill draws heavily on the story of the 56 signers of the U.S. Declaration of Independence, portraying them as a shining example of decisive leadership. These men made a decision that put everything: their lives, their fortunes, their families on the line. They knew the cost, but their commitment was stronger than their fear. Hill uses this historical moment to illustrate the power of standing by your decisions, even in the face of danger or uncertainty. He also points out that opinions are one of the biggest enemies of decision. Too many people are influenced by the opinions of others, friends, family, coworkers, and this leads them to doubt themselves. Hill's advice: keep your own counsel, trust your gut. And if you do seek advice, make sure it's from people who have experience and success in the area you're pursuing. Another powerful idea in this chapter is that decisiveness builds self-trust. Every time you make a clear decision and act on it, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, reliable, and focused. Over time, this makes you more confident, more action-oriented, and more successful. So, what's the practical takeaway? Don't wait too long to decide. Don't let fear or others' opinions cloud your judgment. Be clear about what you want, and when you've made up your mind, go all in. Hill makes it clear that riches and success favor the bold. Indecisive people rarely achieve great things because they rarely act with enough force or consistency to change their circumstances. In short, decide quickly, stick with it, and move with confidence. That's how leaders are made and fortunes built. Chapter 8. Persistence. The sustained effort necessary to induce faith. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill drives home one of the most underrated yet crucial qualities for success: persistence. While desire may be the starting point, persistence is what keeps that desire alive when challenges show up. It's the steady push that turns intention into achievement. Hill emphasizes that without persistence, even the strongest desires will fade into nothing. He explains that persistence is a state of mind, a habit developed over time. It's not something you're born with, you build it, decision by decision, action by action. Whenever obstacles arise, and they always do, the persistent individual finds a way forward. Those who lack persistence will make excuses, lose hope, or simply give up. One of Hill's key points is that lack of persistence is one of the major causes of failure. Many people quit just before they reach success. He gives examples of well-known entrepreneurs, inventors, and leaders who faced repeated failure but pushed through, not because they were lucky or smarter, but because they persisted when others would have walked away. Hill lists 4 essential steps to develop persistence. 1. A definite purpose backed by a burning desire. You must really want something, not just casually wish for it. 2. A definite plan expressed in continuous action. Without a plan, persistence has no direction. 3. A mind closed to negative and discouraging influences. Don't let other people's doubts become your own. 4. A friendly alliance with one or more people who will encourage you to follow through. This is where the power of the mastermind, from Chapter 9, comes in. He also touches on the importance of habit. If you give up easily, it's likely because quitting has become a habit. But the good news is, persistence can be trained like a muscle. Every time you choose to push forward, you reinforce that mindset. There's a part where Hill says, riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans, backed by definite desires, through constant persistence. This line sums up the chapter perfectly. Success doesn't fall into your lap. It's earned through continuous effort, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when you fail. Hill warns against the temptation of giving up. He shares stories, like the famous 3 feet from gold, to illustrate how close many people are to success when they stop. Often, the breakthrough happens after you face the worst setbacks, if only you persist a little longer. In the end, this chapter teaches that persistence is the bridge between desire and its fulfillment. Without it, dreams remain dreams, but with it, even the most impossible goals can be brought to life. Chapter 9. Power of the Mastermind, the Driving Force. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill introduces one of the most powerful concepts in the entire book, the mastermind. He defines it as the coordination of knowledge and effort between 2 or more people who work toward a definite purpose in the spirit of harmony. This alliance creates a kind of third mind, a unique force or energy that emerges from the collaboration of like-minded individuals. Hill emphasizes that no one achieves great success alone. If you look at the most successful people in history, they all had a team or group behind them, a close-knit circle of advisors, partners, or thinkers. This group amplifies each person's strength, shares specialized knowledge, and provides emotional and strategic support. One of the key ideas here is that when minds come together in harmony, they create a new, powerful energy, almost like plugging multiple batteries into a single device. The energy of the group can help generate new ideas, solve complex problems, and maintain momentum through difficult times. Hill sees the mastermind not just as a collaboration, but as a spiritual and mental synergy that produces real results. But harmony is critical. If there's friction, jealousy, or ego in the group, the mastermind loses its power. Members must genuinely support each other and commit to the shared goal. It's not enough to simply gather people with talent. They must be aligned in purpose and emotion. Hill also explains that this concept ties directly to power, which he defines as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. A single individual can only access so much knowledge and experience. But through the mastermind, one can tap into the brain power of multiple individuals. This combination of minds creates an almost limitless resource. There are two types of mastermind groups mentioned. 1. Economic masterminds, groups focused on business, wealth, and financial gain. 2. Spiritual masterminds, those focused on moral support, creative energy, or alignment with infinite intelligence. Hill suggests you create your own mastermind group by surrounding yourself with people whose knowledge complements yours and who believe in your vision. You must also be willing to contribute value in return. Mutual benefit is essential. This chapter teaches us that success is not just about willpower or intelligence, it's also about the people we align ourselves with. When you deliberately build a mastermind group and work in harmony toward a shared purpose, you tap into something far greater than yourself. It becomes a force that can drive you forward, even when your individual strength wavers. Chapter 10. The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. In this fascinating chapter, Napoleon Hill dives into a subject that might seem surprising in a book about wealth, sex, but he's not talking about it in the way most people might think. Instead, he explores how sexual energy, when harnessed and redirected, can become one of the most powerful forces for personal achievement, creativity, and success. Hill begins by stating that sex desire is the most powerful of all human desires. It motivates people to take bold action, to express themselves, to seek love and connection. But here's the twist. Instead of letting that energy be spent entirely on physical gratification, Hill argues that the most successful people learn to transmute, meaning to transform this energy into creative and productive outlets. He calls this process sex transmutation. It doesn't mean repressing or denying sexual desire, but rather redirecting that intense energy into ambition, imagination, willpower, persistence, and enthusiasm. Think of it like fuel. You can burn it quickly and be donor. You can channel it to power a long, purposeful journey. Hill points out that many of history's greatest minds artists, inventors, business leaders, and innovators were highly sexed individuals. But their genius came from the fact that they didn't merely give in to their impulses. They converted their sexual energy into passion for their work. That energy became drive, creativity, and the ability to push through obstacles. He makes an important distinction. Sexual energy is more than just physical attraction. It involves emotions like romance, love, and passion. When these are blended, they can elevate a person's state of mind to what Hill calls genius. A man or woman in love or deeply passionate tends to be more courageous, more inspired, and more productive. Hill also emphasizes the importance of a supportive, inspiring partner. He suggests that the right romantic relationship can boost a person's ambition and fuel their creative energy, while the wrong one can drain it. This ties into his broader theme of emotional harmony and the power of the mind. Why does this matter in a book about getting rich? Because, according to Hill, wealth is not just about money, it's about mastering your emotions and energies. If you can control and redirect your most powerful urges, you gain control over yourself, and self-mastery is the foundation of all success. To wrap it up, sex transmutation is about transformation. It's the art of taking one of the strongest natural forces in human life and consciously using it to fuel something greater, whether that's building a business, writing a book, leading a movement, or creating something beautiful. Chapter 11. The Subconscious Mind, the Connecting Link. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill dives deep into the subconscious mind, calling it the connecting link between the conscious mind, the spiritual realm, and infinite intelligence. It's like a bridge that takes your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions and channels them into action, outcomes, and even external circumstances. What you constantly feed into your subconscious, whether positive or negative, becomes part of your reality. Hill makes one thing crystal clear. The subconscious mind never rests. It's always on, always absorbing information, whether you're aware of it or not. It doesn't filter, judge, or question your thoughts. It simply acts on the information you consistently give it. If you're constantly thinking about failure, worry, or fear, that's exactly what your subconscious will align your life toward. On the other hand, if you flood it with belief, success, and positivity, it becomes a powerful tool for achieving your goals. He emphasizes that the subconscious mind responds most strongly to emotions. Thoughts on their own can pass through, but thoughts tied to strong feelings like faith, love, desire, or fear leave a lasting impression. That's why it's so important to not only say affirmations or think positively, but to feel them deeply. That emotion is what signals to the subconscious that this thought matters. Hill also discusses how the subconscious plays a key role in turning your definite chief aim into reality. When you consistently repeat your goal, as outlined in Chapter 2, Desire, and combine that repetition with faith and emotion, your subconscious begins working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, influencing your behavior, and opening up opportunities. Another important idea here is that your subconscious is also heavily influenced by the people around you, your environment, what you read, watch, and listen to. Hill strongly suggests guarding your mind. Negative people and toxic input can program your subconscious with doubt and fear, so surround yourself with uplifting, success-oriented influences. The chapter also touches on the idea that the subconscious is the gateway to infinite intelligence, or what some might call the universe, God, or universal consciousness. It's how we receive flashes of inspiration, gut feelings, and creative insights. Hill isn't saying you have to be religious to benefit from this, but he's inviting us to think beyond logic and into intuition, something science can't fully explain, but every successful person has experienced. To put it simply, your subconscious is always listening, and it will bring into your life the things you think about, most especially when those thoughts are charged with emotion. So the takeaway is to be intentional. Train your mind. Speak your goals out loud. Visualize them vividly, and feel the emotions of already achieving them. Over time, your subconscious will begin to turn those dreams into reality. Chapter 12, The Brain, a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill explores the fascinating idea that our brain is not just a thinking organ, but a powerful broadcasting and receiving station for thoughts. He argues that thoughts are more than internal chatter. They are a form of energy that can influence the world around us and even connect with other minds. Hill believes that every human brain is capable of sending out vibrations of thought, especially when the thoughts are fueled by strong emotions like desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, or fear. When a person intensifies their thoughts with these emotions, they become more powerful and more likely to influence not only their own subconscious mind, but also the minds of others. This idea builds on earlier chapters, especially those about the subconscious mind and the power of autosuggestion. Hill says that the brain becomes especially effective when it's aligned with these tools. Essentially, the brain receives thoughts from both the conscious and subconscious mind, and then sends them out into the universes, similar to how a radio broadcasts sound waves. Hill also introduces the idea that the brain can receive thoughts from others, particularly when those thoughts are transmitted with intensity. This is part of what he calls the sixth sense, or infinite intelligence, an invisible force that connects all human minds. It's not something science has fully explained, but Hill insists that it's very real and can be developed through practice, self-discipline, and the mastering of earlier principles in the book. A particularly important connection is made with the mastermind principle from Chapter 9. When people work together in harmony toward a shared goal, their brains essentially link up to form a more powerful mental force. Ideas flow more freely. Inspiration is stronger. Hill believed this is why great business partnerships, like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, were so successful. Another key point Hill makes is that your dominant thoughts, the ones you think most often and with the most emotion, are the ones your brain will broadcast most strongly. So if you're constantly thinking about failure, lack, or fear, that's what you're sending out into the world and what you're more likely to attract. On the flip side, if you focus on prosperity, confidence, and success, you tune your mental station to receive those kinds of outcomes. In short, the chapter emphasizes that your brain is a tool for both transmission and attraction. By mastering your thoughts, especially emotionalized thoughts, You're not just changing your internal world, you're also tapping into an unseen network of energy that connects you to the minds, ideas, and opportunities around you. Chapter 13. The Sixth Sense. The Door to the Temple of Wisdom. In this chapter, Napoleon Hill dives into something more abstract and mysterious than the previous principles, the sixth sense. According to Hill, the sixth sense is not something you can fully understand or control until you've mastered the other 12 principles in the book. Only then does this sense begin to awaken, and even then, it often comes in flashes, through hunches, instincts, or intuitive nudges. Hill describes the sixth sense as a blending of the mental and spiritual, a kind of bridge between the conscious and subconscious mind. It's not logic, and it's not emotion. It's a quiet voice, often speaking in moments of silence or deep focus, that helps you make decisions or avoid danger. Hill suggests that many of the most successful people in history, even if they couldn't explain it, relied heavily on this sixth sense. He doesn't present it as something mystical or magical, though it might sound that way. Instead, he treats it as a natural evolution of your thinking mind, something that develops as you build discipline, focus, faith, imagination, and control over your emotions and fears. Once you've trained your mind using the other steps, your subconscious becomes more receptive, and this sixth sense begins to whisper truths and insights. Hill shares a powerful story about how he used visualization and imagination to meet a group of imaginary advisors. He would sit quietly and picture people like Lincoln, Edison, and Napoleon Bonaparte, not just reading about them, but imagining conversations with them, absorbing their wisdom. These weren't just daydreams. He treated them like meetings, believing this practice strengthened his intuition and helped him receive creative ideas or solutions to problems. Over time, these conversations became more vivid and the guidance more impactful. He also cautions readers, you must approach the sixth sense with humility. It's not something you can force or fake. It only becomes reliable when you've truly aligned your thoughts with purpose, faith, persistence, and the right mindset. If your mind is clouded by fear or greed, the sixth sense either won't speak or worse, might mislead you. In a practical sense, this chapter is a reminder that success isn't always logical or linear. There will be times when reason isn't enough, and in those moments, a well-trained mind can receive that extra push from within. That's the sixth sense, the voice that helps you act when you're uncertain, nudges you away from the wrong decision, or helps you recognize an opportunity others miss. In closing, Hill sees the sixth sense as the final piece of the puzzle. It's not where you start, it's where you arrive. After sharpening your mind through desire, faith, persistence, and planning. It's the gateway to higher wisdom and the true sign that your mind is in harmony with success. Chapter 14. How to Outwit the Six Ghosts of Fear. In the final chapter, Napoleon Hill gets real with us. After all the techniques, strategies, and principles shared throughout the book, he reminds us that none of it will matter if we don't first confront the invisible enemies lurking in our mind sphere. Hill calls them the six ghosts of fear because they're sneaky, intangible, and yet incredibly powerful. They haunt our decisions, sap our confidence, and stop us from taking the actions that lead to success. The only way to truly think and grow rich is to recognize these fears and take conscious control over them. The six basic fears. Here they are, in the order Hill presents them. 1. Fear of poverty. This is the fear that drives us to play it safe, settle, or stay stuck in jobs or situations that don't serve us. It's rooted in a survival mindset and can paralyze us from taking risks or thinking big. 2. Fear of criticism. One of the most crippling fears. It's the reason many people never chase their dreams. We worry too much about what others will think. What if we fail or look foolish? 3. Fear of ill health. This fear often leads to anxiety about our bodies or hypochondria. Ironically, Hill says that fear of disease can sometimes bring about physical symptoms. Your mind is just that powerful. 4. Fear of loss of love. This one stems from jealousy, suspicion, and emotional insecurity. Hill notes that it's often the most emotionally painful of the six fears and can distract or derail our focus. 5. Fear of old age. Society conditions us to associate aging with decline, weakness, or irrelevance. This fear often shows up as an obsession with youth or resistance to change. 6. Fear of death. The most final and ultimate fear. Hill argues that fear of death makes people anxious and limits their joy. He encourages us to accept death as a natural part of life, not something to fear, but something to prepare for by living fully now. Where do these fears come from? Hill believes these fears are not something we're born with. They're learned, often picked up from our environment, parents, media, and culture. That's good news, because what's learned can be unlearned. He warns that these fears often operate on the subconscious level, which means we may not even be aware of how much they control us. How to defeat them? The key to conquering fear is awareness and intentional thought. Hill suggests regular self-analysis. Ask yourself tough questions, examine your behavior, and be honest about where fear may be influencing your choices. Most importantly, he urges us to strengthen our minds with positive thoughts, definite purpose, and the courage to act in spite of fear. He closes with a powerful message. Freedom from fear is the first step to riches. Only when we break the chains of fear can we unlock the full potential of our desires, imagination, and willpower.